Hey, welcome back, everyone. I'm Phil Harwood, and this is another episode of Under the Tamarisk Tree. I'm joined today by Tabitha Hart, President of Tamarisk Business Advisors, and we have some great news to share with you. Hi, Tabitha.
Hello, how are you, Phil?
Doing great. You've been busy doing something pretty amazing. You
Well,
just released your first book, and we're going to be talking about that today.
yeah. Yeah, I did. It's really exciting. So, um, that's why we haven't recorded in a while. I've been a little bit busy with that.
We have been very busy working behind the scenes. And one of the things I just want to tell, because I'm so proud of this and it's so exciting, you hit Amazon #1 bestseller list just a few weeks after your book was released. How exciting.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I got that message and I just came right out of my shoes. So,
So, one of the first questions I have for you, and probably everyone else who's listening to this podcast, is what inspired you to write a book? Because that's kind of crazy.
yeah, it is. It is crazy. But, you know, this as well as I do. I spent most of my career working with business owners. And over the years, I've noticed a challenge that almost every single business owner struggles with. Some of the businesses that, look really, really successful on the outside weren't really creating freedom for the people who built them. They're good businesses, they're profitable, they're growing, however, the owners just they can't step away. They can't. So every important decision still comes back to them. Their teams are always waiting for them. The customers still depend on them. And, even though the business had grown, the business owners' lives hadn't become any easier. And that was the observation that, pretty much stayed with me for years. So, that's why today our work focuses on helping business owners build businesses that, you know, not only generate income, but creates options for them.
Mhm.
I've come to believe that those are two very different things. And that's what eventually became the foundation for what we now call the Tamarisk method.
Mhm. I mean, you're basically describing every client I've ever had with my
Yeah.
consulting business over the years.
Yes,
It's just so
exactly.
common, so common. So
And
this
so many of them, oh, sorry. So many
no, go
of the
ahead.
business owners think that they're the only ones that struggle with this and they're the only ones that are facing this
Mhm.
challenge. And they think every other
Mhm.
business owner is better at it or has it all figured out. And that's just not true.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned the Tamarisk method. Talk to us about that.
So, um, you know, initially, most people will assume that it's an exit planning process. And yes, exit planning is part of what we do. But I think that description is just way too small. The Tamarisk method is about helping business owners intentionally build a business that can thrive beyond them. When people hear the words exit planning, they think, oh, retirement, or that's something I'll worry about someday. And I mean, we just don't see it that way. I believe the decisions we make today will determine what options we have tomorrow. So whether it's a C or whether it's an owner who's, wanting to sell or pass the business to their children or hire a CEO, or perhaps they want to start another company, or, maybe they just want to take a vacation without, worrying about what's going on back at the office. So all of these outcomes begin with how the business is designed today. And that's what the Tamarisk method is really
Mhm.
about.
I want to go a little bit deeper into this idea about having options because you mentioned that word a couple times, and I think that's a really powerful word. But can you explain a little bit more about how options play out in this context?
Sure. So the purpose of a business, I mean, this is what I believe, and I know you do too, isn't simply to just make money. I mean, that's great. We all want all the businesses to
Sure.
be profitable and profit matters. The revenue matters, growth matters, but I don't think they're the highest purpose of a business. I think the highest purpose of a business is to create options. I mean, we want options for the owner, options for their family, for their employees. for future leaders within the organization. And I mean, most business owners think about it. Can they take 2 weeks off and truly unplug?
Probably
Um,
not.
exactly. Could the business continue if something unexpected happened to them tomorrow? Do they have the option to
Probably
sell?
not. Yeah.
Yeah,
They'd
or
get
to
pulled
keep
back
it?
in very quickly.
And if they keep it, again, and then do they have the option to pass it to the next generation? Those are all
Mhm.
options. And many business owners have spent decades building successful businesses without realizing what they've done quietly throughout the process is they've been losing options for themselves along the way.
Yeah, so I'm so glad we took a minute to talk about this. This was real life history, part of my story with my family business. As my grandfather, who was the founder of the business, aged, I just saw those options for the business dwindling away because there wasn't any proactive planning on his part. And so as he got older, those options just became fewer and fewer until really he was out of options. And it's sad because that business very successfully made it to the second generation, but then never made it to the third generation, which was my generation. So I I lived this story of options. So I'm so glad we talked about that for a minute. Um,
It's so true.
yeah. For sure. Most of the business owners that I've worked with over the years, they're really focused on growth. And when you think about that, is there maybe a mistake in that focus? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, and this is something that I've run into with business owners, and this is another, gosh, it sounds so depressing, but it is. It's something that can be very unfortunate, as if, the biggest misconception they have is, believing that growth automatically creates freedom. I mean, sometimes it does, but most of the time it creates exactly the opposite. And, you know, many business owners aren't scaling their business, they're scaling owner dependency. And what that means is as the revenue grows, more employees need the owner, more customers depend on the owner, more decisions flow through the owner, and the business gets bigger, but everything still revolves around one person. And so that becomes exhausting. Growth without intentional design doesn't not it, it just doesn't reduce owner dependency. Most of the time it multiplies it. And that's why some owners wake up 10 years later with a much larger company. They also have much less freedom. And that's one of the
Hmm.
things that I think is very important to assess. And it's a question that needs to be asked. I know a lot of advisors and a lot of people that business owners talk to, they want to grow their company. Nobody asks them, like, okay, well, what are you growing? And what is this really going to create for you?
Hmm.
How do
Yeah,
you know
I've
you're
seen this
ready to
play out.
grow?
I've seen this play out so often where, just as business grows from, the founder who's doing everything, me, myself, and I, they cobble together some buddies or a cousin or a brother, and then everything's great. They have a few employees, everything's great. Everyone knows what everyone's doing. It's just a seamless, perfect little team that's working together seamlessly, and then they add a few more people and a few more people, and all of a sudden they lose control.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to hire management, and then the managers don't act like business owners because hello, they're not. And so now they're trying to manage managers and to get the managers to think like them and take ownership when they're not owners. And so, and then when so to try to get beyond that, over that hump to a real scalable business where the owner isn't making every decision, it's an enormous leap to get there. And so sometimes and quite often, as businesses grow, the owners just get entrenched and just stuck in the weeds, and there's no hope. Like they can't get out of that area they're in. So how is it possible that this Tamarisk method can help these owners?
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you asked because what you just described is reality time and time again. And so, the business owner, the painful truth of it is they didn't really construct and design a business that was ready to scale and to grow. So in doing so, they just created um, a job that's more dependent on them.
Hmm.
It can be really daunting. So
You
the
can't
first
ever get
step,
out.
you
Yeah.
can't. And then, I mean, you can. Don't let's
Hmm.
give some hope here because there's a lot of people in that
Without the Tamarisk method.
without the Tamarisk method. So the
There
first
you go.
step that we go through, the first system within the Tamarisk method is something that we call clarity. And the first thing that we do, and one of the things that I've learned that owners are they're so close to their business, they're so entrenched, even if they're not huge and overwhelmed, but it's hard for them to actually see their business from the outside perspective. You know, I mean, and the fact that they're so close, I mean, that's one of their strengths, but it can also,
Hmm.
but seeing things objectively is difficult when you're inside of it, when you're that close to it. And so the first thing we show them is where all the dependency exists, where risk exists. And we also get a we look at it's not about fixing anything just yet. This is just about seeing the business accurately. We look at the financial performance, of course. We examine leadership, owner dependency. I already said risk transferable value is another thing, and decision making and how that process works. The things that often don't show up on a financial statement, but they have tremendous impact on the future of the business. And once we can understand where the business truly stands, then we can begin to intentionally design something much stronger. So that's where we start foundation. That's the second system. And the goal isn't simply to grow, as we've said, the goal is to build a business that creates more options over time.
So, talk to us a little bit about foundation. How does that process work? Clarity is the process of really understanding, seeing very clearly what the business is, how it's constructed, and where all the risk is. And so, there's this big. Hopefully, there's a newfound appreciation for what needs to be done in the business. How does foundation help? Where what happens during foundation?
So during foundation, what we do is we take all of the information that we have collected and analyzed through the clarity process. And the foundation is going to be different for every business. The focuses are going to be different. What the purpose of this is to take the business from where it is and how it exists today, whatever level it may be, wherever the risks may be. We want to enhance whatever's working well. We want to focus on making that even better. And then whatever isn't working well, we will turn that into, we'll take those things, we'll focus on those. The goal is to get it from where it is today to a best in class business. That's what foundation is, taking all the information and actually implementing the plan forward.
How long does it take for someone to go through both clarity and foundation?
Again, I was just asked this by a client yesterday. So I like to talk about it in sessions rather than time. The goal is, well, it's 8 sessions for clarity because, you know, there are steps that need to be taken and
Hmm.
there's a time frame. Ideally, the programs together, it's a 14-month engagement. There are businesses that are going to take longer, and
Hmm.
perhaps there are ones that are going to take a little less time. Doubtful, but
Hmm.
I mean, that hasn't happened yet. But to say, ideally, we want to get through this in 14 months. It should be a 14-month engagement.
Hmm.
12 months for foundation, 2 months
Hmm.
for clarity. That's our goal with every client.
Got it. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So, I want to go back to your book.
Sure.
and the Tamarisk method,
Hmm.
uh, available on Amazon, obviously, and on our website, Tamarisk
Yeah.
Advisors. But what surprised you the most when you were writing your book?
Well, there were a couple surprises along the way, but and I love this question. Thank you for asking this. I was on a mission to write a book for business owners that addressed all of the things that they face and their successes, their challenges. And as I was writing, um, I was just picturing the business owner as the reader. That was the one reader. But then every chapter that I wrote, every example, every story, and I had them in mind the whole time, but somewhere along the journey of writing this book, something changed a little. I realized I wasn't just writing to the person who built the business. I was writing to the spouse who watched their partner disappear into the company for years, to the adult children who grew up understanding that, even if nobody ever said it out loud, that the business came first. And to the friends who stood next to someone they love, watching them, get carried away by the thing that they built. I don't think I set out to write for those people, but by the end, I couldn't help not write for them
Hmm.
because everything I believe about options, that a business should create options, not just income, that doesn't only apply to the business owner. It applies to all the people surrounding them and standing next to them as well.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Is the book a kind of like a academic, kind of a textbook? Does it go
oh
through the
gosh, no,
clarity and foundation step by
no,
step?
no. It is not a manual. It is not a guideline, and it's definitely not a textbook. It's um, it's a it's a collection of ideas and thoughts and stories and real life examples. I didn't want to write a book about case studies. You're not going to hear about
Mhm.
somebody going from this many millions to that many millions. I, I didn't write a case study. It's a
Mhm.
story that relates to business owners and it can meet them wherever they are and wherever they are in the development of their company. This book is meant to meet them where they are and offer just some of it's anecdotal, some of it's,
Mhm.
really deep, but it's a nice read. And that's what I wanted it to be. But I also wanted it to be very thought provoking at times as well.
Yeah.
You
Well, I
read
have to
it. What did
say,
you think?
well, I was just going to say, I've read lots and lots of business books, and some are very dry and academic, and some are, stories. I love some of the Patrick Lencioni books that are fables, just in a big story, almost like you're reading a play. So it's not that, but it's somewhere in between. And it's definitely a quick read, a page turner. Once I started it, I literally could not stop. It was just go, 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 go get another cup of coffee. And I just read right through it in a couple hours. And it was very well written. So
Thank
great,
you.
great job.
Thank you.
And I'm
And
not surprised it's number one bestseller.
and every story in there is true. I've actually, every story that's in there, it's not even something I heard from somebody else. It's all my lived experience working
Mhm.
with business owners, working for business owners, even early in my career. These are all true stories. I'm not going to tell you how many years my professional life has been because then, but these are all true. So,
We won't ask. What's
that,
the what I want to move toward wrapping things up here, but
yes.
what's the one takeaway that you want everyone to remember from this conversation?
Well, I hope they remember to ask themselves a simple question before you make any major decision. Ask yourself this: what options is this creating? And then I want you to consider a few things after asking that. Is this decision making my business more dependent on me? Is it creating more freedom or more responsibility than I can carry? Is it building something that can endure? Or is it something that only works because I'll be the one holding it together. I think every business owner starts their company hoping to create a better life. My hope is that they
Mhm.
never lose sight of that because a business should absolutely create wealth, but more importantly, it should create freedom. And I believe freedom comes from having options. And that's the business I
Mhm.
want every owner to have.
Sure. Well, this has really been a great conversation, and thank you so much for um, whatever inspired you to write the book. Great job, because this is a book that every business owner needs to read
Thank
and
you.
take action on. Um, and I can only imagine that anybody who's listening to this podcast, their wheels are turning, and they probably want to have a follow-up conversation with you. So, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The easiest place to start is our website,
Mhm.
tamariskadvisors.com. And, you can learn more about the Tamarisk method, read about our advisory work. And if today's conversation sparks something for you, you can also order a copy of the book from the website. Um,
Mhm.
and also, you can schedule a 30-minute Zoom conversation with me. Go right to the website. I have a Calendly calendar set up. And,
Mhm.
this is just a discussion. It's simply an opportunity to have a conversation about your business, where you are today, where you'd like to go, and whether or not we might be able to help. I mean, even
Mhm.
if we never work together, I mean, I hope that everyone, could at least leave that conversation with a different perspective and a few thoughtful questions to consider. And
Mhm.
so, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and we've always taken that approach.
Hmm.
We'll take time and chat with somebody and hear their story and get to know them. And if there's some way we can help, great. If not, they can read the book.
Yeah. So,
Well, this is great. So I would just encourage everyone to, you know, hit the website, get a copy of the book, read it. I promise you, once you start it, you won't be able to put it down. So make sure you got a good cup of coffee in an hour or so. And I think you're going to look at your business in a completely different way after you get through that book.
and
So,
if you go to the website and even if you don't order the book, I mean, feel free to reach out. I'd still love to have a conversation with you
mhm,
about what's going on with your company. And you can also look up on our website, we have pages for clarity that explain everything that system does and all the, what it can do for you and foundation, what that's all about. So yeah, go take a look at our website.
lots of information. All right. Tabitha, thank you again. This has been
Thank
amazing.
you.
And yeah, I'm glad we're back on in the groove with
Mhm.
Under the Tamarisk Tree, and we'll see
Yep.
everyone next time.
Yep. Take care. Thank you.